Hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and welcome back to Once in a Wild Wednesday, where we broadcast across social media every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time and show you guys some fun animals, live animals virtually right here on social media. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda, and this is Once in a Wild Wednesday, where each and every Wednesday we broadcast throughout social media, of course, and we bring the zoo to you virtually and show you a few animals and teach you all about them. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week, and I hope you guys are ready to enjoy a fun animal encounter virtually. We can bring the zoo to you in person as well if you happen to be in our neck of the woods, which is San Antonio, Texas, or surrounding cities, of course. Let me know if you happen to be interested in your own animal encounter, whether it be for a classroom, a birthday party, anything at all. We can help you out. Those are probably our two most common requests, but we can also do public events. We're actually going to be at a public event coming up this Saturday in San Antonio. We are going to be at the Blessing of the Animals in downtown San Antonio, well, the downtown area over at the marketplace. So if you guys want to check us out, that information should be on our social media as well as on our website, onceinawild.com. It is a public event. We would love to see you out there. It will be a little bit chilly, so we're going to bring some cold weather tolerant animals. Rango the owl, Sandor the rabbit, the opossum will be there, Alice. Who else is planning to go? Probably a ferret, probably an axolotl, which, speaking of which, we have an axolotl right here on the table for you guys to meet today. We'll get to her in just a little bit. But those are some of our cold weather animal options. Now, we are looking forward to springtime coming up soon, but if we have temperatures below 60 degrees and you plan for an outdoor encounter of any type, we do need to basically limit the animal choices that you can pick. There are a few of them. There's a couple others I didn't mention as well. So just let us know if you're interested in that, and we can make it happen for you guys. So it's not totally like a no if it happens to be cold, but if it's rainy, cold, and maybe like 45 degrees, we probably won't suggest that you, or we will not suggest that you be outside, and you have an indoor option, which in case we'll be very, very careful. We will wear a mask at this time and be very safe. And we always bring hand sanitizer and things like that, just in case you're wondering. But we can bring the zoo to you virtually or in person. And if you happen to not be in our neck of the woods, virtual is definitely an option for you. We're about to do, well, in a month, we're about to do a program for a school out of state, and we can do classroom programs virtually. We can basically match them to your curriculum if you want to. We're actually doing that coming up for a rodent class. We're going to show some of our guinea pigs to a school coming up, but we can also bring multiple different species to see you guys virtually as well. And it kind of looks just like this, only you're going to get to pick the animals, or you can be surprised by animals I pick if you want to, but it will be just for you. It'll be basically a private Zoom, and you can invite your friends and family, or of course the classroom involved, and we can teach you guys about animals, and it's a little more personal. But every Wednesday we like to bring the zoo to you virtually as well. Now, if you do like what you see and you want to support what we do, thank you very much ahead of time. We do have ways to donate and sponsor our animals. Please visit onceinawild.com/donate for all your options. We've got Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal, as well as Amazon. Amazon Wishlist is another, our Amazon wishlist, I should say, is another way that you can actually help us out. We've got pre-selected items that you can send us for the animals, and every little bit helps. And also, another reminder, a great way to help us out, of course, is to purchase your own animal encounter, so you get something in return. It is a really fun experience. We've had a lot of positive feedback on our in-person and virtual animal experiences, so I do recommend. There's something for everybody. We've got mammals, birds, reptiles, we've got invertebrates and amphibians too, and axolotls are one of our most popular requests. And we are one of the few animal encounter companies or outreach companies that can actually bring axolotls to your event. We actually bring them to your home or to your classroom or whatever it may be, your place. Axolotls are very temperature tolerant, so they can go to cold weather events. But we bring them in their own little display, and you get to watch them and enjoy them and learn about them if you want to. We can do meet and greets and keep it more casual, or we can keep it or have it be more formal for you, and then you can actually learn in a show and tell format, and everything in between. We've also got animal photo ops as well as animal therapy. So something for everybody. So let me know if you're interested. Give us a holler. Go to onceinawild.com and you can find our number. That's the best way to get a hold of us. Just a good old phone call or text to inquire about your animal encounter. That's not good. I'm already getting a dry throat. At the beginning of the program. Hello, Instagram, and hello, the rest of social media. We are going to learn about 3 animals today, and thank you for coming back, or thank you for joining us for the first time. We appreciate new followers, friends, and family joining in, and we appreciate our already current family, friends, and followers. I'm having a tongue-tied moment, sorry. And if you want to watch some of our videos that we've already uploaded to YouTube and Facebook, you can watch some of our past live streams. We have way over 100 of them. Since the lockdown, we've been making live streams all the time, and now we do them once a week. But we also have some new uploaded videos. So if you want to share those, rewatch them, like them, comment on them on YouTube and Facebook, that helps us out quite a bit, even when they're kind of replayed videos. That helps us out a lot. And that's actually a free way you can help us out. Now that I think about it, I always mention that too. A free way to help us out is by telling all your animal-loving friends, family, and people you know about us. Remember, we're something for everybody. We're not just for kids. We're for adults and kids of all ages. And even if you're not in our area, we can bring the zoo to you virtually. So just watching our videos, spreading the word about Once in a Wild and what we do, and how we educate people about animals and inspire them to create a better world, essentially, because they are falling in love with wildlife and saving animals in their own backyard and teaching their children and their adults about better ways to coexist and be around animals and to take care of their pets too. Got some pet care tips too. So that is what we do in a nutshell. And if you want to know anything else, feel free to leave a comment down below. I can see your comments on most of the social media and Instagram too. I can actually read your comments and answer your question, as long as it's family friendly, of course, right here on the live stream. But if you want to know something and you want to keep it a little more, incognito, if you will, you can just message us or text us at our number as well. So just let me know. I'm here to help, and I'm more than happy to do so. Hello, Instagram again. Thank you for joining us. So today we're going to learn about 3 different animal species. I've got one right out on the table already, so why don't we just start with her? This is Ghost, our most famous and popular axolotl that we have. Check out my shirt. It's got an axolotl design on it. Courteous of Ricky Moeller, who is my fiance and the co-owner of Once in a Wild. Fiesta-lotl, isn't that cute? I know it's backwards on Instagram, but you get the point. It says Fiesta-lotl. Super cute design. We love it. We do have stickers with the axolotl design as well. Looks just like this. If you guys want to get your own merch, visit onceinawild.com. We are working on new merch coming out soon, so please stay tuned. We will absolutely let you know when that is out. We've got magnets and we've got stickers and all kinds of fun things right now. So please let us know if you would like some. We will send them to you anywhere, all over the place. So this is Ghost. She's a golden albino axolotl. I'm going to go ahead and feed her a little worm because she deserves it. And also, I mean, it's her favorite treat, but that will hopefully get her to come a little closer so you guys can see. Now, I do apologize. She is a little bit small on screen. Come on, Ghost. Come on over here. I bet she's going to bite that plant. No, she did it. Yay! She did a great job. So she found the worm right away. Very good, Ghost. Ghost is an axolotl. Like I said, axolotls are a type of underwater salamander that really never kind of grows up. They stay big babies their whole life. So all salamanders and all amphibians, which includes frogs, newts, toads, and many others, they are amphibians. And so they start their life as an egg when they are laid by their mother, of course. And if it's fertilized, they will have a little baby in there, fertilized by dad in the water usually. And then they will actually hatch out after a pretty short time. Usually amphibians aren't in the egg very long. They will hatch out and they will be a tadpole or a larva, right? They will come out and be a little aquatic larva. Most people call them tadpoles. And then little by little, they will start to grow up and they will metamorphosize, just like some insects do, right? Some insects, like, of course, butterflies will metamorphose too. So they're kind of similar that way. So they will come out of the egg, hatch out, be a tadpole, be fully aquatic because they're already in the water. And they have gills when they hatch out, by the way. And their gills are kind of like fish gills, but a little bit more obvious. They have little kind of feather-like gills on the sides of their head. That's what looks like their hair or even feathers on the side of their head. Right now, Ghost's gills are a little bit pink, but sometimes they're bright red. And that depends on how much she's being active, how much she's breathing, because more movement, more breathing, more activity equals more red color. So she's kind of like in between right now. But when she's really active, they're really bright red and big and feathery. But when they start metamorphosizing, they start to grow legs in the front, legs in the back, and usually other amphibians like frogs, of course, they will start to lose their tail, lose their gills, and then become a sometimes on land animal, right? So they can be on land and they can be in the water. They have options typically as an amphibian. This amphibian, however, is not one of those. So they actually stay in the water their entire life. Even as a mature breeding adult, they just grow in size and continue to have that neotonic state, which means it's like a big baby, essentially. But they are sexually mature, which means that they can have babies of their own. Ghost is certainly a mature sized female. She is about 7 years old, I believe, 6.5 or 7. And I've had her since she was a tiny little axolotl. She was already a metamorphosized axolotl, but she was just a tiny version of what she looks like now. And we've raised her from a little baby. So she's around 7 or 6.5 or 7 years old. And she is an adult sized axolotl. They could potentially get slightly larger than this, but they don't tend to get any larger than this. So that is how the axolotl grows up. And that makes them a little bit strange. They don't really come out on dry land, and they don't really turn into an adult phase animal. They stay in a netonic state, which is very rare in amphibians. There are a few others that also do the same thing as the axolotl. One is actually from Texas. It's called the Texas blind salamander. And those guys have such tiny little eyes, they don't really need them anymore. And so they basically lost all their eyesight because that species lives underground in like underwater caves where there's really no light. So they have evolved to just not even need any eyesight at all. So they're called the Texas blind salamander, and they're a little more slender in shape and smaller than this species. So the axolotl is actually from Mexico. They are from Xochimilco, Mexico, which is south of Mexico City. And they are from only a couple of little pockets of a river system called the Xochimilco River Canal System. And they live in extremely cold waters. They have basically like in the 50s and 60s, sometimes 70s. They prefer it colder than 70s, though. The 50s and 60s is ideal for them. And it's very murky, very muddy, kind of looks like a swamp in their waters. It's not crystal clear like this. And that is where they live in the wild. And they're only from that little part of the world. And that is it. That's the only place in the wild that you can actually see or find axolotls at this time. And they are usually the color of like a dark brown, almost black. And they do actually kind of fire up and fire down. If you're familiar with crested geckos, if you have one or have ever seen one, they do change color a little bit too. A lot of amphibians also change color a little bit. Not every amphibian can do this, but they will kind of change their color based on activity level, maybe stimulation of things like that. So typically in the wild, they're going to be almost black, but they also have a little bit of like leopard spots. And all of that makes a lot of sense because they are going to be able to camouflage like that. Hello, I'm so glad to see you on here. Yeah, Ghost is here. Thank you for joining us on Instagram. That's a little bit of a switch. Nice to see you. Yeah, so these guys are not this color in the wild. Ghost is a golden albino. I know it's hard to see her from this distance, and I do apologize, but there are pictures of her on our social media, and there's also pictures of her on our website if you want to check her out a little bit closer. But she's kind of a light kind of pinkish tan color, and she has golden like little spots and flecks on her. Now her coloration can vary depending on her like temperature, mood, whatever's going on, moving around, stimulation, things like that. And she also has golden eyes. So if she were just a normal albino, that's hard to say apparently. If she were a normal albino, she would be albino colored, so like kind of whitish, pinkish color all over her body. She wouldn't have the golden flecks. And she would have red eyes instead of golden eyes. Now, there's also another similar coloration, which is called leucistic. And leucistic in any animal means they have dark eyes, or they might even have dark blue eyes or brown eyes instead of red or golden. Does that make sense? So a leucistic axolotl is actually the most popular coloration that you see depicted in art or pretty cartoons that you see on Instagram. Oh, really cute, dark-eyed with the white bodies and the pink gills. And I've heard as well that axolotls are also found in Minecraft, the video game, of course. And those axolotls can be like any color, but that doesn't exist in nature and doesn't really exist in real life at all. So in nature, they're only really that different color that I described earlier, the dark with spots camouflage, right? However, spontaneously, albino animals can happen sometimes And typically they do not survive because they're more easily seen by predators on an early age. Of course, predators can easily eat them when they're small, and predators can eat them when they're big. I mean, they're not the biggest animal on earth, so definitely have predators. I'll talk about some of their predators here in a little bit if you want. But these guys, in the wild, if they happen to be white or albino, they're probably going to get eaten by something pretty early in their life cycle. But also, they are not going to be able to sneak up on their prey as easily. Now, they do live in a dark area, so maybe they'd be able to survive. Who knows? But in general, albino animals and white animals that happen spontaneously in nature, they do not really make it in the wild because they're going to be seen a lot more often and not going to be able to hide from predators or prey. Now, speaking of which, you see that she's eating worms. Worms are also what they eat in the wild. These are mealworms. I'm feeding her not really an animal that she would get in the water in Mexico, pardon me, but they would eat other types of worms. They might eat larvae of insects, of course. They might eat insects themselves that land on the surface of the water, or some insects are aquatic, right? They might eat fish. They might eat all sorts of things, but they are carnivores. So they will eat all kinds of animals as an adult. Now, when they are still a larva, tadpole, or even maybe a little bit of a polywog where they're starting to get their limbs and things, they might still be able to eat some algae and different types of things. And that is very common with amphibians of all types, including frogs, other salamanders, etc. When they're a larval state, they can actually process plants and meat. So that makes them an omnivore. That gives them more options to be able to eat in the wild. That way they can grow as fast as they can and mature to be able to be a little bit bigger, a little bit less vulnerable to predators, etc. An animal's goal typically in the wild is to grow fast. There are, of course, exceptions. For example, Xena, our African flat rock scorpion. Those guys take a long time to grow up for whatever reason. I don't really understand the logic there. But most animals that start off life very small or in a larval state, etc., they tend to grow pretty quickly. And that is a general rule with a lot of exceptions. So don't hold me to, it's not like black and white, it's not 100% right. But with these guys, it certainly is like that. And with most amphibians, they grow pretty quickly as they mature. And then, oh, you gave up Facebook for New Year's. I don't really blame you. It's nice to see you on Instagram. I'm trying to upload on Instagram as much as I can. It's harder to have like the special guests and things like that because of the angle of Instagram. But I am going to be going live on Instagram a lot more often than I used to. So I hope you like it, and I hope the angle is okay, and I hope to see you again on many more. And it's fun on Instagram nowadays. You can actually save the recordings, whereas before we really couldn't. So that's why I wasn't really going live on Instagram as much as now I am. So I'm glad you're here. So these guys will, like I said, they'll eat a little bit of vegetation as babies, and as they grow up, they become a carnivore, which I think is so fascinating. These guys just change it, like everything about them as they grow. Really, insects and amphibians are pretty fascinating in the way they mature. Would you like another worm? I think that's a yes. Look at her go. She loves the worms. Ghost is so cute. Now, unfortunately, axolotls are a critically endangered species. That is why it's so important to learn about them, to research them in science, and to actually breed them in human care and clean up their environment in the wild. Because what's going on with a lot of amphibians, but axolotls in particular, definitely severe, is going to be their habitat loss. That means they're losing their homes due to humans coming on in and moving in and destroying their habitat. That's one reason. Another big reason is pollution. So that could be chemical pollution or plastic pollution, polluting their waters in general. Plastic is definitely a bad thing in the environment in general, all over the planet. That could be big plastic that they get stuck in. That could be little plastic that they actually eat and then become impacted. And eating plastic never works out well for anybody, right? Did you know that plastic is so bad in the ocean that when we catch fish to eat, that there's plastic in those fish that we're catching to eat, and it might be very small and pass through, hopefully, right, your system. But with these little guys, a lot of times that doesn't happen, and they get impacted and can pass away from that. So that's a big problem. Another thing is going to be climate change, temperature change. The Earth is warming, right? Global warming. So again, these guys prefer a cooler, colder temperature. Now, for any animal, global warming can be very, very bad. That could make all sorts of different temperature changes all over the planet, especially these water animals where their waters are changing completely from what they used to be. And especially cold weather animals or cold temperature animals like these guys, their water is very cold. So any temperature change in the water that could actually in combination with pollution, maybe chemical pollution and temperature change becoming too hot, that could force them to actually metamorphosize into a land animal. And if an axolotl metamorphosizes into a land salamander, they don't live for very much longer after that. I think it's about 6 months to a year at tops. And this animal, in human care anyway, can live into their late 20s if properly cared for and everything's good with them and they're not, they don't have any illnesses or anything like that. They can live a long time. But in the wild, if they metamorphosize like that, their lifespan is pretty much cut right then. But that would be like an emergency situation to be able to escape those bad things in the water. So that's what would happen to them in the wild. So the best way we can actually help the axolotl is to support places that have them, because most places that house axolotls or house amphibians in general, they're helping amphibians in some way. And they are amphibians, of course, and many amphibians are suffering the same fate. This just happens to be one of the most endangered species of amphibian in the world. Can you believe that? And now they're popular in the pet trade, and now they're popular in zoos with animal outreach like us, breeders, all kinds of stuff. And I think that's actually a good thing because we can preserve the species. We can certainly learn more about them. And in Mexico, where they study the wild axolotls, they are trying to clean up their environment slowly but surely. It takes a long time to do that. They're also trying to see if they can maybe breed axolotls, which takes a lot of genetic it's just a lot of work to make sure their genetics are healthy and they're not too inbred and things like that, since there's so many have not made it and there's so very little left to breed. That's a big challenge. So it's not super easy, but that's what they're working on right now. And they're trying to see if there's other places. Hi, Alejandro. Nice to see you. Oh, I'm your fan too. I'm super your fan. Thank you for saying that. I would love to see you soon in person. We should probably collaborate in some way. Wouldn't that be fun? You could be on the show. That would be so much fun. So I got sidetracked there. But these guys they're trying to clean up the environment that they come from in Mexico. They're also trying to clean up similar pockets of the river system around Xochimilco where they come from, to be able to kind of see if they can maybe like release them in those areas and not just the area where they're native to, if that makes sense. So that's what they're kind of working on right now as far as my knowledge. And to give you an image in your head of how many have disappeared over the years, in about 25 to 28 years, they went from 6,000 per square kilometer. So you measure a square kilometer, we think in miles here in the US, but a kilometer, it's a big space, a square kilometer, about 6,000 axolotls per square kilometer in that small area that they come from. So they were just like tons of them back in the day. And in a span of 25 to 28 years, they went to 35 per square kilometer in that little of time. Isn't that awful? That is how fast these amphibians can actually disappear essentially. And now they're saying that they're so hard to find in the wild that you just can't even find them anymore. Where you used to be able to just dip your net in and a couple axolotls would be in the net, now they can hardly even find them anymore, which is super sad. But luckily they do breed very well in the care of humans. They also have a lot of babies, hundreds to even thousands of babies sometimes when they lay their eggs. So in human care, we can actually regulate temperatures, regulate breeding, regulate survival of those babies. The genetics may be a little wonky, right? But we can do our very best to make sure the species doesn't go extinct completely. Because in the levels of extinction, these guys are pretty far down and going towards extinction in the wild. But hopefully in human care, they will still be around a long time. Now, they have been in human care a long time for scientific research. I know that sounds weird. That sounds a little like, sketchy. But it's actually for cancer research and health research. So these guys are wonderful animals that can actually regrow their limbs. So a lot of lizards can regrow their tail, right? Because a lot of lizards have what's called tail autotomy. A tail autotomy is basically the ability to drop a segment of their tail. That tail can fall off. A predator can potentially eat the tail of the lizard, and the lizard can get away with its life, right? They can run away, and maybe just the tail is lost, and they can live to see another day. They can lizard again, and the predator gets a little bit of a snack. But that tail of a lizard will eventually regenerate. Still impressive, but it takes months. For example, Say it's like a skink, a blue-tongued skink drops its tail, gets eaten by a predator, and then gets to run away. It's gonna take like 6 to 8 months for that tail to grow back, depending on how far down the tail fell off, how much protein that animal is getting, genetics, et cetera, temperatures. It can definitely vary. But with an axolotl, they take it to the 10th level. So say that the tail autonomy of a lizard is like level 4. These guys are level 10. So these guys can actually lose anything and regrow anything on their body. So as long as part of that body part remains, that can regenerate. So for example, these guys lose a hand. Look at her cute little hands. What if an animal came by and ate her hand off? Oh my gosh, that would be terrible. Well, luckily for her, she can just regenerate that hand in a matter of 3 weeks. No problem. If she loses the entire arm, that whole arm and hand will regenerate in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks. If she gets bit in the side for whatever reason, or gets like some sort of awful injury where something is removed from her side, she can regrow the side. She can she can regrow the organs that are inside of her that were taken out and eaten potentially, or just broken off. She could potentially grow all those back. Even if half her head is missing, she can regrow half the head. That is unheard of in the animal kingdom. Most animals can regenerate limbs. If they can do that, for example, tarantulas and other spiders and some insects and things can actually regenerate their limbs. So some arthropods and things like that, joint with their jointed limbs, arthropods. They can regenerate those. Of course, lizards. Some lizards can regenerate the tail. With lizards, though, and with some of those other animals, it's never really the same that it used to be. These guys, when they regenerate a body part of any type, could be a gill, could be anything, that will look exactly the same as it did before. As long as these guys are getting some food to eat, staying as healthy as they can, having good temperatures and general good health, their limbs and body parts and whatever will regenerate the same way that it was before, and you wouldn't even notice that it ever happened. How cool is that? So if these guys get one of their tail tips stuck in a rock or something like that, that's just child's play for them. They can regrow their tail tip in no time and be good as new right away. Isn't that amazing? That's probably the most impressive thing about the little axolotl, these little amphibious gooey things that we see and are so cute. They are super cool. And these guys are worth studying. I don't blame scientists for studying them, because how cool would it be to apply that to human medicine, or even to like our pets? Like, what if your pet became injured or needed an organ transplant or anything? We could just regrow all of that instead of having to wait for a transplant, instead of having to, repair that leg. It would just grow right back and be fine. That would be amazing. Oh, my hair is not straight. It is curly. Check it out. You guys that are thinking on the top it kind of stays straight, but I got waves. So, no, I haven't really changed much there. I have not given up Facebook, although I don't blame you. Facebook is not really my favorite. My favorite is actually TikTok, and we do have a TikTok. But as far as broadcasting, we don't normally go live on TikTok. Maybe I'll try that on another day of the week. But to be very honest with you, I'm very busy. So yeah, this is as much as I can do once a week, you guys. If we could simultaneously broadcast on TikTok, I would do that. TikTok is my favorite to just scroll through and have fun with. I love uploading casually on TikTok. But where we upload the most is going to be the general ones: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but mostly Facebook and Instagram. If you want to keep tabs on what once in a while and what I'm doing, you can definitely follow us over there. A free way to help us out, and a great way to just view some fun content and whatnot. Yes, yes, yes. So I hope you're doing well, Richard. Yes, yes, yes. But yeah, so axolotls, wonderful animals. If you guys have questions, if you guys, you want to collaborate? Awesome, Alejandro. Of course, anytime. Make your way on over to San Antonio. Maybe I'll come visit you down in the valley. So if you're still in the valley, I assume. So that's the axolotl. It's going to be our first animal on the docket today. One of my favorites, one of our mascots here at Once in a Wild, right? Such a cute little design. They're inspired by alebrijes, a Mexican art form. If you're not familiar with that, it's kind of like from the movie Coco with the alebrijes. Yeah, so that's kind of where our color scheme also comes from as well. We love all of that. Ricky is from Mexico. Do you want to come Get another worm before we move on to the next animal. Oh, I didn't talk about their senses. I always talk about animal senses because that tells you a lot about how they view the world and how they operate, right? So, axolotls, best sense is probably their sense of touch. They can feel vibrations in the water just like a fish would, or a lot of animals that are aquatic. And animals that are hunters, even animals that are aquatic and not hunters, they rely on feeling vibrations to stay safe from their enemies, right? Predators and things, or humans. You want to come over here and get a worm? Oh yes, she felt that. Ooh, her aim is a little off though. Oh my gosh, there we go. Their second best sense is probably smell. It could be the same as their sense of touch, as far as we know. Who knows? But they do smell really well underwater. They do have ever open eyes. They don't blink. They can kind of roll their eyes and look around a little bit, but they don't have the best vision in the world. But remember, they're coming from a very dark place in nature. And especially an albino animal of any type probably doesn't have the best sense of sight in general. They are also a nocturnal species, so being from a cold, murky river system in the wild, they don't really need a whole lot of eyesight, but they can see. They're not blind. She does notice me across the room when I come to the room. She's always looking for handouts. Typical. And you want another one? Yum. Maybe I'll just feed her the rest of these worms before we go. But those are their main senses. We really don't know if they have good sense of taste. Definitely touch, smell, a little bit of seeing. We don't really think they hear. It's more like feeling vibrations, if that makes sense. They don't really have ears like a frog does. So when frogs metamorphosize, they get an ear on the side of their head. It's called a tympanum, which is like a external eardrum. It's like a flat, round eardrum, but frogs hear very well. Frogs have all five senses, toads too. Frogs have great vision, even far away, and everything, even color and everything. They're very different than the axolotl. These guys really just kind of stay like big babies, so they don't have as many abilities as like senses wise as the other amphibians that metamorphosize onto being another type of animal. Even salamanders, which they are a type of salamander, they're just an aquatic salamander. Even other salamanders will have like better vision and whatnot than an axolotl as an adult. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to yeah, no filters. I'm not putting any filter. This is me, the way I am. So let's go ahead and move on to our second animal friend. Let's get my hair out of the way so it's not in the way. This is actually going to be a reptile coming out next. And I know last week I just did a creepy crawly animal grouping, if you will. We had, who do we meet last week? We met our fire-bellied toads. We met our Kenyan sand boa. We met a crested gecko. But since I wanted to show the axolotl today, for whatever reason, I just got the idea in my head. I was like, well, it'll be easier to show another reptile, and then we're actually going to meet a mammal at the very end. So stay tuned. If you prefer furry animals, you will love the last animal. But as of now, I'm going to bring out a reptile. So let's like dive down below. This is one of our larger-ish reptiles. She's not the largest. Our largest, well, a couple of our larger reptiles include David boa, the boa constrictor. He's still growing, though. He's got a lot of growing to do, so he's going to be bigger later. But also, we have Joanna, the iguana. We've got, who else? Somebody we saw recently, which is Dino, the savannah monitor. And I brought another lizard out today. So it's not a snake today, it's a lizard. It's Lulu, the tegu. So this is Lulu. She is a Colombian tegu, and she is not going to be as big as an Argentine or Argentine tegu, or Argentina tegu, however you want to say that. She's a Colombian, so she's not going to get too much bigger than this. But as a reptile, they never really stop growing little by little, so she could get a little bit bigger. But she's a Colombian, and she's a female. Female tegus in general don't get as big as the males. They are quite dimorphic. Speaking of which, the axolotls are just slightly dimorphic at first glance. All of them look the same gender across both genders. But males do have a little bit of an obvious undercarriage scenario, if you will. So you can actually see a little bit of a dimorphism in axolotls. But with tegus, and dimorphism just means difference between the genders, right? Sexual dimorphism, that's what that means. Tegus typically look very different once they're grown up from male to female. Now, when they're babies, they all look the same, just like a lot of baby animals, baby iguanas, baby anything almost always looks the same unless they're mammals or something obvious, right? But reptiles and birds and amphibians as babies, they usually look the same for the most part. I could be not remembering one exception, but for the most part, most baby lizards especially look the same gender to gender. But these guys, when they grow up, they start to have different features that make it very obvious that they are male or female. So at her age, which we don't know her entire age because Lulu is one of our rescue animals, we did not adopt her as a tiny baby. We adopted her as a juvenile. And what happened there was she was actually found roaming around in a neighborhood. And this was in Dallas when we lived in the Dallas area a few years back, and she was picked up by animal control and labeled an Argentine tegu because they didn't know what species it was. But they were trying their best to find her a good home, and they contacted us through, I guess, somebody mutual that knew us. I forget what happened there, but they got our number. And I came to animal control to the shelter to see the lizard, and I was like, "Oh, you've got a Colombian tegu, but I'll take her anyway. That's fine." And so we didn't really know the gender yet, so we named her Lou, my lizard Lou. And eventually she got bigger, and now obviously she's a girl. But when we got her, she was a juvenile size. She wasn't a baby, so we don't know her exact age, but she is by now. She should be bigger than this if she were a male. Number one, males are far larger than females when it comes to being a tegu of any type. And also males, male tegus have big fat cheeks. And the big fat cheeks are actually for a couple of things. Number one, they're going to be a lot more attractive to girl tegus during the breeding season. When these guys are approaching a female, the bigger the cheeks, the more handsome she thinks that he is. And also, that's going to save him in the event of a fight with another male. So male tegus will battle each other and fight with their mouths. They'll bite each other and things like that and thrash around to be able to win territories and win females. And if they have skinny cheeks that are not so fat, or maybe they're an immature or less mature male, that will not save their throat from a bite to the throat. But if they have big fat cheeks, that will save their throat from a fatal wound, if that makes sense. So the fatter the fat deposits on the fat cheeks, the more attractive and more capable he will be to defend himself from a fatal wound, and thus winning those females by default, by survival, or by her selection, because it's much more attractive to have big cheeks when you are a tegu. So that's one thing that, pardon me, the sniffles. That's one thing that is different between male and female on a tegu, and it's also the size and a little bit of behavior as well. Now, Colombian tegus are not as big as Argentine tegus, but they are still a very large lizard, and they are not a beginner species to own as a pet. I believe tegus are okay for an advanced reptile keeper. I don't recommend monitors to really anyone unless you're a super advanced keeper. But tegus are a little bit less advanced because of their personality. That's really the main difference between monitors and tegus is their personality, also their diet. Tegus are actually omnivores, whereas monitors are carnivores. But both monitors and tegus require a lot of space. They're both very intelligent animals that need a lot of stimulation and training to be able to be handleable. But tegus tend to be a little more handleable than monitor lizards and a little bit less dangerous than monitor lizards. So they're great animals, but they may not be good for the lizard themselves to have a home where they're not becoming as stimulated or given as much to do with enrichment or training. And we take her out on lots and lots of programs and things, so she gets to do a lot in her life and see a lot of things. So that is very important for this particular type of lizard. Plus, they do require a lot of space and whatnot. And they're a bigger lizard. And if they do bite, this can be a very serious bite full of teeth. They have a very, very strong mouth that they use to eat their food, right? So these guys can eat all sorts of things. Speaking of which, they are omnivores. Her favorite food happens to be eggs. She also likes bananas, but she will eat almost anything that she finds, especially in the wild. In the wild, they can eat dead animals. They can catch live animals. They can eat bugs. They can eat birds. They can eat fish. They can eat eggs, like I said. They can also eat fruits and vegetables too. So they're omnivores. They're kind of like the garbage disposal of the lizard world, right? There's a few of those lizards, like blue-tongued skinks and bearded dragons or other ones too. And these guys especially will eat a lot of carrion or leftovers from other predators. And that makes them very, very important in their natural environment. And also, they are a food source for other animals too. Yes, you are. Being an animal from Colombia in South America in general, there's lots of predators that rely on smaller lizards like baby tegus, or even bigger lizards, depending on the size of the predator, like maybe a jaguar or eagle or something like that. Those guys will eat these guys. And so, as I talk about that, she's like, see ya. There might be a bird of prey around here. There isn't, Lulu. You're okay. Now, you'll notice that Lulu likes to run. They are pretty active. Now, she's usually only like this when I hold her. In her enclosure, she's not the most active, although they do need some space to move around and have a good life. This is her being very stubborn. Now, that takes a lot of training and experience with these guys to know what to do. As you can see, I'm not restraining this lizard. I'm just letting her walk on my hands like a little treadmill, and usually she will just settle right down and kind of give up. And the last thing I want to do is let her down when she's acting like that, because then she'll learn that she can just get put down for acting like a fool. So we're not going to do that. You're not a fool. You're actually very smart. But you know what I mean. She's acting up. So that is a great way to train them, is just by kind of sticking it out. But if I were to go to restrain her and grab her head and like shake her around or something horrible, she would never trust me again. These guys are so smart. There's no reason to restrain them like that. And now when we got her, she was really needing a lot of training when she was younger and when we first got her, because remember, she had escaped or she was running around a neighborhood. Either she was a released pet or an escaped pet. So who knows how long she had been out there. But she had to be trained to be able to be handleable and things like that. Now she does pretty well. But tegus in general are a little bit stubborn, and Colombian tegus tend to be more high-strung than Argentine tegus. Nikki's asking a question. Hi, Nikki. Are they able to eat poisonous animals too? I do not know that. So that is a great question to look up. I don't believe that they normally do eat poisonous, like venomous snakes or poisonous frogs or poisonous plants. I don't believe that they do that, but I could be wrong. I've never had that question before. But I know that these guys eat a lot of things, but I do know that opossums can eat all of those things, because opossums have natural immunities to some of those poisonous plants and bad things that most animals cannot eat, venomous snakes and things. But these guys do eat non-venomous snakes. I know that for sure. They'll basically eat whatever they can get, whatever makes sense for them to eat. So they can catch snakes, they can catch slow-moving birds, I guess. Now, these guys are not as fast or nimble as a monitor lizard. I know she's crawling around, but these guys really don't do any climbing. They're not as fast. They can move in short bursts of speed and maybe catch some animals, right? But they're not nearly as fast and crazy as monitor lizards are. And their nails are not as sharp either, because they're not a climbing animal. So her nails are designed for a little bit of digging, and that's really it, just walking around. So they're not super sharp. We can give her a nail trim, but to be honest with you, her nails are not very sharp at all on the skin, which is nice. Let's see how she just kind of treadmills along my hand. You can really see it on Instagram. Now, they do have this beautiful black and white coloration, right? Their black and white coloration is for camouflage because of the pattern. So some black and white animals, like the California king snake and the skunk, of course, those guys are black and white with like a stark, bold pattern. And usually if you see a stark, bold pattern on any animal, no matter what the color, black and white, could be red, yellow, and black, etc., that is to stand out and give a warning to other animals that they might be poisonous or harmful. With this pattern, though, she's more like a spotted cat, where she would blend right into the background. You need to calm down. When these guys are babies, she heard me. When these guys are babies, they're more of a brown or golden color, and then they become more white spotted as they age. So speaking of which, this is a type of lizard, by the way, that cannot change color whenever they want to. They do change color as they grow and mature, but almost every reptile does that. Almost every reptile, with a few exceptions, of course, because there's always exceptions to everything. Only a few reptiles stay the same color their entire life. Most reptiles, when they are hatched or born, they will be one color as a baby, and then after losing skin, well, shedding skin, I should say, and becoming a mature adult, they turn into a different color sometimes. That is the case with most tegus. Most tegus have a little bit of a different color as babies, but this is not a type of lizard like the chameleon or like an iguana or bearded dragon or etc. that can change color when they want to. They do not have that ability. There are a few lizards that can do that, and a lot of lizards that cannot do that. Nikki says, I heard that they can eat beehives, but what about getting stung? I'm not really sure about that. I've never heard of that before, so you taught me something new, which is awesome. So these guys, if they do get stung by bees and things, I would imagine that their armored skin isn't as sensitive as other skin, right? And even some animals like, I don't know, bears, they eat bees too, or they eat they eat bees and the honey from the bee combs. But their fur is really thick too. Or even like, for example, the anteaters, like tamanduas, for example, what live in South America along with the tegu. Those guys eat ants, and their fur is really wiry and thick, so that will help them not get bitten by ants or stung by ants too. I'm learning something today as well. I would love to look up a tegu eating honey from the beehive. I'm not surprised that they would do that. They could eat the bees, and they could eat the honey. That's a 2 for 1. And also, a lot of animals eat bees and honey. But you better leave them alone because bees are becoming more endangered. We need the bees. Now, speaking of which, these guys do eat a lot of things they're not supposed to. Now, they can eat whatever they want in their natural environment. That's what they're there for, right? But these guys are actually invasive, which means they don't belong there, but they live there anyway, to South Florida. So specifically, it's the Argentine tegu because that's a much more common pet tegu. Those guys are invasive to South Florida. Florida is very, very similar, at least South Florida, is similar to their natural habitat in the jungles of Central and South America. So down there in South Florida, like I keep saying over and over, these guys have become either released pets, escape pets, maybe hurricanes knocking over buildings and releasing them, maybe coming over in some other ways from South America, maybe on boats and things like that. Who knows? But there's a lot of them in South Florida running amok where they shouldn't be and eating all the things. They will eat eggs of other native wildlife. They will eat plants that they're not supposed to be eating. And that is really bad for the environment for any invasive species to be running around causing problems and eating things. So that is the main problem with these guys over there in South Florida where they're invasive. Oh my gosh, she's closing her eyes and pretending we don't exist. See her beautiful brown eyes? These guys do. Ooh, her eye is right over my eye. That's kind of cool. Ooh, she has beautiful brown eyes. Very intelligent looking eyes, in my opinion. They're kind of human-like, but they also have a third eyelid, which a lot of lizards and other animals do have. Their third eyelid or a nictitating membrane is going to be clear, and hers will kind of go, I believe it goes side to side. I just saw it a second ago. That can clean the eye. She can also use that for goggles if she wants to go swimming. These guys can go swimming a little bit. They're not super aquatic like the axolotl, right? And they're not super aquatic and swimming around like an iguana would do as well. But these guys can go swimming if they need to. Maybe they need to go into the river to get away from something or just get a drink or something like that. They can stick their head under the water. They also have that amazing tongue. I haven't talked about that yet. Let's talk about their senses before I forget. They have amazing hearing. They have great ears on the side of their head, unlike the axolotl. Can you see the ear? This is her ear. If I scratch it, she'll shut her eye. Her scratchy ear. So the ear. It's not super easy to see on this species, but there it is. Kind of blended in with her spots there. They have really good hearing. They have really good vision. They can see for a long distance, just like, most humans can. There are exceptions right out there that need glasses, but most humans can see pretty far away and look out for danger and things. They can see colors. What else? They can smell with their nose. They can feel, of course, on their skin, even though their skin is very, very tough. They can still feel like you and I feel. It is more armored and tough to protect them. And by shedding their skin, that helps them to heal quickly and also get rid of external parasites. That's why reptiles do that so often. When lizards like this shed, they're shed in pieces. And when snakes shed, they shed in all in one piece, right? And when tortoises shed, they shed in pieces too. They also have that amazing tongue. The tongue can taste and slurp up food and just be used like a regular tongue. They can also lick their chops with their tongue. I think she's just taking a little nap in my hand. But also she has a forked tongue, really similar to a monitor lizard or to a snake. So a snake and a monitor lizard and a tegu and some others, they have a forked tongue. So that means it has 2 points on the end of the tongue. So 2 kind of slender points at the end of a long tongue. Now, her tongue is not as slender as like a snake's tongue or a monitor lizard's tongue, but it still has 2 points on the end of it, a forked tongue. And that gives them directional smell. So this type of lizard, as well as other types of lizard and snakes, they have what's called the Jacobson organ, which is a pocket on the roof of their mouth, kind of an upside down pocket. So when they stick their tongue out and the tongue goes back into the mouth, it will tickle the roof of their mouth and go into the pocket and then tell the brain immediately what's going on and through smells. So they will gather scent particles on the tongue and learn all the things around them straight to the brain by doing so. So that's why the tongue is forked. But they have a big pink tongue, which is my favorite thing about the tegu, is their big beautiful tongue. Everybody do the tegu. Ugh. Ugh. And they kind of just do it automatically as they're alert. When she goes to sleep, she won't be sticking her tongue out much. Nikki says, any known predators? Yes. So if you think of this animal as a baby tegu, they're not very big at all. These guys are about yay long, maybe a little, if I could stretch my hand out, a little bit longer than that as a baby. At least their body is about this long, with the tail they're a little bit longer. Little baby tegus, tons of predators. Any predator you can think of in South America or Central America or even Florida can potentially eat these guys. So species of cats, species of dogs, birds of prey, fish if they get in the water that are big fish, snakes can eat them as well. As adults, though, tegus in general have less predators, but that doesn't mean they don't have any predators, right? So animals like jaguars are a big predator of all sorts of things in Central and South America. They are the strongest of all the cats. Did you know that? They have the strongest bite. And jaguars are so strong that they can hunt things like crocodiles and caiman right out of the water, and they're not afraid of water. So even if the tegu dives into the water to get away from a jaguar, the jaguar is just going to dive right in right after it. They can swim. So that's a big predator for most animals in Central and South America, but also eagles. Eagles are another big predator, and hawks as well, depending on the size of the tegu, right, of the individual we're talking about. The bigger the tegu, the bigger predator they will need to be successfully eating them, right? But what else? Large snakes like anacondas can eat them sometimes. It's rare, but it happens. Large fish. I mean, you name it. They have tons of predators. So yes, they have many predators. There's very few animals out there in nature that are apex predators, which means they don't have any natural predators. And there's also, of course, humans, which can hunt and eat them as well. So the list is very long. Also, other tegus can eat baby tegus sometimes. So they aren't really known to be super, what do you call it, loyal to their species. They're not super into being cannibals either. They're just kind of like an opportunistic type of animal. Whatever they think that they can eat, they're going to try to eat it. It's very important if you have a tegu or really any reptile, for the most part, with a few exceptions, to keep them separated from each other, because you never know, if they get hungry enough, they may be able to eat each other if they happen to be predators, right? Hello. It's so good to see you guys. Hi, Alamo Ranch Pop-Up Market on Instagram. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to give me a question or a comment. Whoa, I know there's so many interesting predators in Central and South America, including themselves. Laura is here and says, hi guys, you guys are awesome. Thank you for all you do. You're welcome. Thank you for your support. So that is Lulu the tegu. Do you guys have any other questions about Lulu? Before she goes, I'm going to show you her tail. Because we talked about tail autotomy earlier, that means the ability to lose their tail in an emergency. So as you can see, Lulu has a regenerated tail. See the white part? There's like a really obvious ring around her tail where it fell off. That actually happened to her before we got her. Unfortunately, during the catch-up. Remember, she was found running around in a neighborhood. So during the catch-up, when animal control had to catch her because for her own good, I believe she lost her tail during that catch-up. Now, they can drop their tail if they feel threatened enough, but even if it was grabbed on accident, or it hit up on the side of a house or the side of a car, or who knows, a tree, when they were catching her up, because it was in a neighborhood, right? It could have fallen off that way. And that's just a safety tactic for them. So the tail can fall right off, pop right off. In nature, a predator might be grabbing it and they might be able to get a tail snack, and the tail will actually keep firing nerves and wiggling around to further sell that it is something to eat. And then the animal itself can run away separate from its tail, and then eventually in about 6 to 8 months they will regenerate the tail. And the reason I know that is because that's how long it took her, even in human care with plenty of meals and a nice safe home with nothing to worry about, plenty of protein to regrow the tail. It took about 6 to 8 months. I can't remember. It's probably about 7.5 months. Long time to regenerate. We did not know it was going to be white. In my experience, when tegus lose their tail like that and it regenerates, it actually regrows solid black. So I wonder if it was just the particular segment or vertebrae where this tail section fell off that encouraged it to grow back white. But how cool is that? And she's getting little spots on the tail little by little as she sheds her skin. So as they shed their skin, they can change color a little bit, like I think I mentioned. And on the tail, which is not the original tail, remember, it's getting freckles on it little by little as she sheds. She is so cute. We're so proud of her for coming such a long way with her training. As you can see, she's still a wiggly monster sometimes, but that is normal. It's perfectly normal. She's still a wild animal, but she's no longer trying to bite us. She's no longer trying to, really go crazy and spin and do crazy things. she's come a long way. She's a good lizard. And she's a very popular lizard. If you guys want to meet Ghost or Lulu the Tegu, feel free to let me know. We'd love to have you guys meet her or her in person or virtually, of course. They are wonderful animals to learn about, and we're happy to give them nice, safe homes. Okay, Lulu, you did a great job. I will wait for her to settle down just a little bit because she started wiggling again. Well, that was pretty good. And it's okay for them to do that. They're animals. They do what they want. I'm not going to force her to do anything. Did you know that lizards needed training? A lot of lizards are like that. They need training because they're very intelligent. But as soon as she settles down, I'll give her what she wants, which is just to go back down into her travel enclosure and get underneath her blanket and take a nap. Because this is a diurnal species. Good job, Lulu. Bye, Lulu. This is a diurnal or daytime species by nature. So she's ready to go to bed. And to tell you the truth, most tegus are pretty good at taking lots of naps. That's one of the things that they love most is taking naps. So we've met the axolotl ghost. Let me go ahead and give her another worm. Oh my gosh. She's looking so cute and definitely deserves another worm. Would you like one? Don't eat the plant. Ah, don't eat the tweezers. Oh no. Here. You silly goose. There you go. She got it that time. That was a hot mess, but I thought she deserved another worm for looking so cute. Okay, so our next animal is actually going to be not a creepy crawly, if you will, not a lizard, not an amphibian. It's actually going to be a mammal coming out next. Now, please bear with me. I do have to go and get the mammal. Now, the reason I have this particular animal on the outside of the room is because if he were on the inside of the room the entire time in his travel crate, he would be making lots and lots of noise by scratching the door and trying to come out. So there's a very active animal and a little bit crazy. So we keep them outside of the room, but the door is right over there. And I'm just going to walk across and open the door and get our next animal. Oh, Nikki has a question. Well, she says, whoa, I'm not sure which part, maybe about the cannibalism thing. Are tegus good parents? No, they are not. Most reptiles and lizards and all sorts of, amphibians, all those guys, most of those guys are not the best parents. There are a few exceptions. For example, the African bullfrog or pixie frog, those guys are great dads. They guard all the babies. Let's see, poison dart frogs are great parents. Both parents are good parents. What else? Reptiles. Some cobras and pythons will actually incubate their own eggs by coiling around them and guarding the eggs. Alligators are certainly great parents, one of the best reptilian parents on the planet. Tegus and most lizards are really not. I'm trying to think if there's any lizards that guard their babies. I can't think of any on the top of the spur of the moment off the top of my head. But tegus will typically, when they lay their eggs, they will bury them in the earth. They will kind of make a mulch pile or an earth pile, bury them as best they can, so that way they can incubate inside the earth. And I believe they just leave them and they will just pop out and hatch when they're ready to hatch, after they've been incubated by the natural temperatures. And then the babies will just come on out and be on their own. That's just, as far as I know, that is how it usually goes for a tegu of any type in the wild. Cool? So they're not really the best parents, but they're not the worst parents either. But I do know you're not supposed to keep little tegus in with big tegus, if that gives you a little bit of a clue. So I'm going to step away for a little bit. I will pause on most of our social media and Instagram. I'll just be right back as soon as I can. Enjoy watching Ghost while I leave, and I will return quick as can be with our next animal. So I'll be right back, you guys. Please don't leave. We'll be right back with our third. And here we are. That wasn't too long, huh? This is Loki. Loki is one of our mammals, of course, and he happens to be a beautiful ferret. Now, the ferret is actually, well, this ferret is a domestic species. There is another species of ferret, which is the black-footed parrot, a endangered species that lives right here in the United States. Did you know that? Those guys are found in the plains of North America. And they feed exclusively or near exclusively on prairie dogs. That is a really cool species out there in nature that is very endangered, just like the axolotl. But domestic ferrets are not endangered. They're domestic animals. So they were actually bred specifically to be with humans, specifically to actually hunt with humans. That's right. You're looking at another hunting animal. This is not an omnivore. This is a carnivore. Kind of like ghost, I guess, but a very different type of carnivore. This is an animal in the weasel family. Weasels across the board, or the mustelids across the board, are actually carnivores, and they are obligate carnivores, which means they should not be eating any plant matter, or carbohydrates of any type. They should just be eating raw meat or meat in general. And we feed our babies, well, they're our babies. We feed our ferrets, Thor and Loki. This is Loki. We feed them a raw meat diet, which is the best diet for them. Right now, though, he's getting his favorite treat, which happens to be chicken baby food. And they only get that for training or special occasions. So he super loves it. And it's something to keep him busy because this is a very busy animal. But weasels in general, so like ermines, weasels, of course, ferrets, what else? Badgers, wolverines, and the European polecat, which is where the ferret comes from, the domestic ferret. Those are all very, very high-strung, high metabolism hunters that hunt. As far as my knowledge, all of these guys will hunt year-round. There might be exceptions there, but I do know that the European polecat hunts year-round because they don't hibernate. And these guys need to eat almost every single day. In fact, if they don't eat every day, they can become very sick, and they prefer to eat about 3 times a day or more as a species in the wild. That is extremely rare for a carnivore. Most carnivores, with a bunch of exceptions, I'm sure, really only eat like once a day, maybe every other day, sometimes even once a month when it comes to being like a snake or something like that. Wow, you are just starving. Like I never feed you ever. You just got dinner not too long ago. They love their chicken baby food. It's a great treat to use for ferret training in case you have a ferret at home. Now, ferrets sometimes are raised on kibble, and a lot of times they're going to be imprinted on whatever they grew up eating, and it's really hard to switch them over to raw diet. Luckily for us, and it can be done, by the way, you can actually convert them over if you try really hard. It's a lot of processing. It's a annoying process. But our guys were actually raised on raw meat, so it's super easy to just keep them on the healthiest diet that we could. So these guys are, again, a European polecat, which is the origin species, kind of like when you have a dog that came from a wolf a long time ago. These guys came from the European polecat about 3,000 years ago. So it's roughly 3,000 years ago is when they were domesticated, and they were domesticated for hunting with us. Since they are such good hunters of all sorts of animals like rabbits and rats and all kinds of things that we humans tend to like to hunt as a species, that made a lot of sense for us to train them and even specially breed them for personality, hunting ability, size, etc., into a whole different species, which is the domestic ferret. The domestic ferrets have been around for a little while. Not the oldest domestic species on Earth, right? There's a few others that are much more old as far as the species goes, but they are now a separate species from their wild cousins, which I find so interesting. Now, Loki here looks pretty much exactly like a European polecat would look in the wild. They have a dark coat with a mask, like a raccoon a little bit, and the white ears, very cute, kind of a white chin. And he even has the same kind of quote unquote hands and feet that a European polecat would have. European polecat's one of those words that's really hard for me to say. European polecat. These guys have semi-webbed feet or toes for a little bit of swimming ability, which reminds me of another one of their close cousins, which is the otter. Otters are also in the mustelid family or the weasel family too. Yes, yes, yes. So these guys, again, are a very, very capable predator. Now, in the wild, they're going to want to hunt every day, or they're going to want to hunt something large that they can stash away or store away. A lot of people with pet ferrets, guys, I'm having a hard time talking now. A lot of people with pet ferrets tell me that they stash away items that they find in their home. If you have like a free roaming ferret or a ferret that's out for playtime, they'll find all kinds of like socks and shiny things and all kinds of things to store away. That comes from a natural instinct to want to store away food for later. Could be for the winter, could be for the rest of their family. A group or family of ferrets is called a business, which actually comes from the word busyness, which is a lot more accurate when it comes to being a ferret. Ferrets aren't really all about business. They're all about play and moving around. So busyness makes a lot more sense, but that turned into business over time. So a business of ferrets may live together in the wild sometimes, But in human care, they are a lot more social because, again, they're a separate species now. They're a domestic species. Now they can interbreed. In fact, Loki's mother is actually a hybrid, so he's technically a hybrid too. So he's got actual European polecat bloodlines right in him, which explains why he looks so much like the wild type European polecat. Nowadays, in the care of humans or domestication, we have a lot of different colors, patterns, and even sizes of ferret all over the place because we bred them for different colors and personalities. We have another ferret named Thor, who's actually white with black eyes. So he's a leucistic, like I was describing with the axolotl colorations earlier. Remember Ghost the axolotl right next to me? She's a golden albino, but they also come in normal albino and they come in leucistic, which is white with dark eyes. Thor, the other ferret that we have, he is a leucistic or a dark-eyed white ferret, and he's really pretty too. But Loki looks like the wild type, and I really love that. Nikki's asking a little bit of a sad question, but I will address it. It says, why are ferrets prone to cancer? Unfortunately, ferrets are prone to a lot of different health issues. That is one reason I don't necessarily recommend ferrets for everybody. These guys really do not do well as they age, and sometimes even at middle age or younger, they can get cancers of different types. They can get adrenal cancer and some other cancers. They can get tumors. They can get all sorts of health issues, unfortunately, that often will come from poor breeding, unfortunately. Inbreeding as well is pretty common with ferrets in the United States. Also, poor diet. Again, they're not supposed to have any sorts of carbohydrates or vegetation, and a lot of ferrets are fed like kibble and stuff like that, right? So that's got a lot of those additives and fillers in it, which are really bad for ferrets over time and can cause all sorts of health problems. We're still learning better ways to keep ferrets. In fact, these guys came from a very, very special private breeder of ferrets who did not basically inbreed them or anything like that. So they have a lot better genetics and very, very healthy boys. Now, because of that, though, these guys are not as tame. Our two guys, Thor and Loki, this is Loki, we have a Thor as well. Our guys are not as tame as some other ferrets that come from mill breeders, like Marshall Farms and stuff like that. Marshall Farms has kind of a monopoly on ferrets in the United States. So most pet store ferrets or most ferrets in general across the board, most of them are going to come from Marshall's, which is kind of like a mill for ferrets. And that's a little bit of a sad situation, right? They kind of factory farm them, if you will. So that tells you a little bit about ferret genetics and things like that. But our guy, and those guys are a lot more tame usually, a lot more mellow. They're more bred for coloration and personality than health. And since our two guys are so much healthier and well-bred, they're a little bit more wild. Now, they don't really bite me or anything like that anymore, but they used to bite a lot. And it's not because they're mean. Ferrets are actually not a mean animal. I've only ever met one ferret that was a little bit aggressive, but these guys really aren't fearful of humans whatsoever for the most part. So they're not really aggressive. Most of the time it's just playing, but they don't understand their own strength. These guys are very strong. Ferrets have very strong bites. That's how they hunt. So a ferret is very, very fast, very flexible, and will usually hunt animals underground like rabbits or rats and prairie dogs and things like that, groundhogs, all sorts of rodents and rabbits or even birds or anything that they can get a hold of. They're not picky at all. They will hunt anything they can. But these guys are very nimble, fast, flexible, almost like a little snake with legs and hair. And then what they do to kill their prey is they will bite and bite hard. So they are little predators, almost like, think of like a kitten mixed with, I don't know, a Tasmanian devil. I don't know. Tasmanian devils are already impressive the way they are. But you kind of have to experience it to know what I'm talking about. If you've ever been around ferrets before that were play biting, you'll know what I'm talking about. They have a very short and stout skull or snout, which will actually give them more biting power than if they had a long snout. So they're kind of like little bulldogs, and they have very sharp canine teeth, which I don't know if he'll let me show you because he's very, very hyper right now. But see his little canine teeth? He's like, leave me alone. They are designed for hunting, and those teeth can hurt when they bite. And again, most ferrets that bite a human, it's because they don't understand that hurts you. So you have to teach them not to do that. It's kind of like having a puppy when you're teaching them not to bite you. So that's no fun for the average person. And ours have definitely come a long way, but they are so healthy and rambunctious and feel good that that's going to happen more often with them than it does with the ferrets from like Marshall Farms and stuff. I hope that makes sense. And I don't mean to steer you guys away from loving ferrets. Ferrets are wonderful animals. They're a lot of fun. They're just a ton of work, a ton of training. Speaking of high maintenance animals, this is a much more high maintenance animal in my opinion than the tegu. At least the tegu doesn't have to eat every day. At least the tegu doesn't usually bite you. Isn't as active. Now the ferrets need at least 4 to 6 hours of playtime every day outside of their main enclosure. So we give them lots of time to play. They do have each other, so they have each other to play with. They need social time. If you only have one ferret, they need probably even more time than that to be able to, sorry, I got hair on my nose, to be able to be happy, active, and stimulated. They also need a lot of toys and enrichment to do, things to do at all times. They're very smart animals. They're also very stubborn animals. Whereas dogs, for example, typically will want to please you and they want to kind of do what you want them to do for the most part. Dogs usually want to figure out what you need and they'll help you out to accomplish that together. And usually dogs are pretty good about that because they've been bred that way. Ferrets haven't really been bred that way. Ferrets are very stubborn. They're still wild at heart, in my opinion. And it's more like a cat, but not really. And they don't really care if you say no or if they get in trouble. They could care less. They think it's a challenge. So that can be very, very frustrating for a lot of owners as well. So I don't really recommend them for everybody. Now, if you are the right home for a ferret and you're aware of their health issues potentially, you're aware of their special diet, you're aware that they're going to have lots and lots of cleanup because they're very messy animals. They poop a lot and they're stinky animals as well. And if you're aware of all their enrichment needs and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you might be the right home for a ferret. Ferrets can be a lot of fun. I've actually had ferrets of different types through the years in my life, and I've enjoyed them. I think they're really, really fun pets, but they're definitely not a low maintenance pet to just put in a cage and leave alone and forget about. I would love to do a ferret care video at some point. That would be a very long and complicated live stream, but I would love to do that for you guys. Maybe for some of the pet type animals, we'll do some more care videos. I did one on rabbits and I did one that was very popular all about pet birds as well. If you guys want to check those out. Now you can see his claws. They do not have retractable claws like a cat. Their claws are more like a bear's claws, but not as severe, I guess. Their claws do need trimming at least every other week, if not more than that. I would say about 3 times a month is what I would recommend a ferret's nails be trimmed. And you can see how capable he is without hands and just paws of holding onto my hands. He's really, really capable of that. And his semi-webbed toes. Not every ferret is going to have semi-webbed toes. It's really just the ones that are closer to the polecats or healthier, in my opinion, if that makes sense. They're a little bit less genetically pets and more genetically healthy. But these guys do have long claws that need trimming. This is with a nail trim. So you can see his nails have been trimmed, but they're not super short. They have long pink parts or long quicks to the nails, right? But they're pretty easy to trim, and ferrets are typically pretty good about letting you trim their nails. They're a lot better than cats at it, and a lot better than some dogs as well. We love them. Now, my favorite thing about ferrets, once he finishes this little snack I'm going to try to show you, he's awfully hyper this evening, so we shall see if he left me. They have a lot of flexibility in their spine. This is not hurting him at all. He actually has a lot of flexibility in his spine. And this is actually kind of calming for a ferret. I know it looks ridiculous. It's hard to show at the angle that I'm at with the camera. But can you see the flexibility that he has? He can basically turn right over and fold over like a little taco and or whatever, a U shape. And that comes from their need to be able to be a tunneling animal, a flexible hunter in tunnels. If they hit a dead end, they can just snake around the other way and get back out without having to back out. So they can literally just turn around all the way around in a tunnel if they want to. And that comes from their flexible spine. So don't try that at home. These guys are expert yoga yogis. Yogi would be a great name for a ferret now that I think about it. Maybe next time. But we have a Thor and a Loki. The reason we named them that is because they're a European animal. And of course, Thor and Loki in Norse mythology come from Europe. And plus, we love Marvel anyway, so why not? Yes, they are so flexible. Nikki says, what are ferrets' skeletons like? They're so flexible. Yes, a spine, the spine of a ferret, they have very long vertebrae. So our vertebrae are pretty stiff, rigid, and small. So we don't have a ton of bendability in our vertebrae, and that's how most animals are. Their vertebrae or backbones, each backbone is very long and has a lot of flexibility in between. So they can kind of just fold right over almost like a snake can. Snakes just have a lot of vertebrae. These guys have not as many as a snake, obviously, but they don't have as many, but they have very long vertebrae. So they're able to give them the ability to bend their bodies. But their skeletons, otherwise, it's fun to look up. Their skeletons otherwise look pretty normal. They do have short limbs and medium length tails. Their tails aren't super long and also not super short. But that gives them the ability to snake their way through tunnels to be a ground dwelling or terrestrial animal and subterrestrial animal. He looks adorable there. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. They do have really cute pads on their hands and feet. I call them hands, but they're not really hands. They're paws. They have really cute paw pads, little toe beans. So cute. He has pink toe beans. And I love their mask as well, right? They also have whiskers. That's really important for an underground animal. Most mammals have whiskers, right? But these guys use their whiskers for tunneling, figuring out how wide a tunnel might be and feeling around for prey or just in general. So their sense of touch is very sensitive. Their sense of smell is also very, very sensitive. Their sense of hearing is very good too. However, there are a lot of ferrets in human care that happen to be deaf. They get along pretty well. You just have to work with their disability. But they're pretty capable of still getting around and things, especially in human care. They don't have to worry about hunting and things like that. They can be fed all the things and get vet care and things. What else? They don't have the best eyesight, but they do see pretty well. They're very stimulated by movement, prey, and movement in general. They love to play with toys and movement, just like a kitten would, or even a puppy. They're very, very stimulated by movement. And these guys have a lot of options of prey. Like I think I mentioned before, these guys are very capable predators. This is one of the animals in our animal collection that I would be very nervous about escaping in our collection because we have a lot of prey animals potentially for the ferret. The ferret would probably win most fights or battles with most of our other animals, even some of the snakes, even some of the birds, even anything, lizards. Ferrets are very, very capable predators. So it's really important if you have a ferret at home or you're ever thinking about getting a ferret, don't let them play with any other animals in your household. Now, some dogs and some cats get along great with ferrets. You have to train them to make sure that they're getting along and nobody gets hurt because ferrets might be hurt and dogs might be hurt and cats might be hurt. But supervised, I think that's okay depending on your situation. We don't really allow that because our ferrets are maniacs and they're a little bit more wild than other ferrets, right? So we just want to be as safe as possible. We're also not, they're not just our pets, they're working animals. We have to make sure that they're able to work, right? So we want to make sure that everything's kind of kept separate. It's also for health reasons and contamination and things like that. But in general, ferrets should not be allowed to play with any other pets because they are predators to most of those other pets, especially birds, reptiles, fish, small mammals. It's a furry little cute predator. These guys may look super cute and innocent. It's a trap. Yes, it's a trap. You heard me. Like, don't give away my secret. Don't give away my secret, Mom. All right, you guys. Well, Loki is a handful, as you can see. He is a wonderful animal. These guys make me laugh. I mean, 100 times a day. I feel like they're so funny to watch play. My favorite thing about mustelids or the weasel family in general, I've worked with different types. I've worked with otters, for example, and others. These guys are a lot of fun because anything you give them to play with, they're like, yes, this is the best toy ever. Oh my gosh, I've never seen this before, even though they saw it yesterday. They know they saw it yesterday. They're not dumb. They just get really excited to do anything. And so their enthusiasm is really, really fun to see. They play really hard. They love playing with each other. They're really fun to watch and they're really funny to see what they get into and what they do. But they're also kind of destructive and they're also kind of, they can bite and things like that. So we have to make sure and let you guys know this isn't a pet for a small child. This isn't a pet for everybody. In fact, I don't think a whole lot of people should have ferrets. They come with a lot of health risks for them. Like I said, they could bite potentially or destroy things in your home. They do need a lot of attention, a lot of enrichment. I mean, they're very high maintenance in my opinion for a small mammal. small-esque mammal. This isn't really the smallest mammal, is he? He's pretty big. Not every ferret is this size, by the way. For example, females. Female ferrets are smaller. Female ferrets are feistier, though, even feistier than Thor and Loki, in my opinion. Females tend to be a little bit crazy, in my opinion. Ferrets, I mean, female ferrets. Also, they must be spayed and neutered. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Now, our guys didn't come neutered already. We actually neutered them at about, they were like 10 months old. But that's very important to do because they can have a lot of health issues and risks not being spayed and neutered. So that's very important that your ferret is already spayed or neutered, or that you get them spayed or neutered as soon as possible, or else they can not be a good pet and not have a good health. Because if they don't breed, they can become very, very sick and even fatally sick. Y'all don't have any other questions? I hope you're still out there. Well, if you're not, that's okay. We can go ahead and close here in a little bit. I'm actually going to run and put Loki away again. I hope you enjoyed seeing him. If you have any questions about him, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Or if you want to meet him in person, that's a really fun one. Now, a lot of people ask us, can we pet the ferrets? Are ferrets a good animal to bring for a children's party? Yes and no. So sometimes for the kiddos, we can bring the ferrets to show them, but we usually don't allow a whole lot of touching with our ferrets, if any, because our ferrets in particular can nip and can accidentally bite somebody. So we want to make sure that you guys are safe, and we want to make sure the ferrets are safe as well, because believe it or not, ferrets can actually contract human viruses as well. So that's a little bit nerve-wracking. Now, it's not super serious anymore. We were a little bit leery about that with Corona and everything, or COVID. But so far, they haven't, no ferrets have really been sick from Corona as far as I know. So, you know, we just play it safe by not letting people really touch them that much and keeping our distance. And if we're ever sick, we wear masks around them, or we wash our hands, or we don't handle them. So we're just trying to like be careful as much as we can. Oh, Nikki's asking, how do animals like ferrets know how hard to bite when playing? Sometimes they don't know how hard to bite, and that's when humans get injured. But with each other, they typically can, of course, speak the same language and let each other know through body language, making noises, things like that, that they're biting too hard. A lot of that comes from playing with their siblings. That happens with puppies and kittens as well. They kind of learn from their siblings. A baby ferret is called a kit, and a litter of kits can learn from each other on how to play and how not to be too rough. However, with ferrets, it's tricky because they have really, really tough skin. So if they bite each other, they can usually handle a lot more pain and biting than a human can. Humans have very sensitive skin because we're delicate as a species. So a ferret bites us, ooh, that can really hurt. And they have to be trained on that. They have to understand that, hey, that's not allowed. So you're going to get a timeout, or you're going to get something not so good, right? You're going to get not rewarded. Let's just say that. We're not going to be rewarded with food, and we're not going to be rewarded with play if they're biting too hard. If they bite too hard, they get a timeout or something like that, right? They get something that they don't want to happen. It's usually a timeout, or get put in their kennel, or removed from food, something like that, removed from playtime. They understand pretty well when that happens. They're very smart, and they don't like to be put in timeout. Don't worry, it doesn't last that long. It's like 5 to 10 minutes. And they get to play again after they have behaved and are calm, like he is not being right now. But I don't expect him to be calm now because he's very excited to work and get treats. That is okay. No, I don't want you licking my face. Thank you. Oh my gosh, he is so cute. Oh, he's super into this today. Well, you guys, it's been a lot of fun, but I think I'm going to put Loki away, and I'll be right back again so we can have a proper goodbye, because my hands are going to be covered in chicken baby food. So I will be right back, you guys, okay? And I'm back. Okay, thank you for your patience with everything tonight. I am going to wash my hands before we say goodbye, because baby food all over my fingers. I'm going to hand sanitize and wipe my hands. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed our animal presentation tonight, our virtual zoo, if you will. We've shown our axolotl ghost. We have shown our lizard Lulu, the black and white tegu from Colombia, and we've also shown our ferret Loki. So that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you would like to catch us next week, we'll be right back here at the same time across social media. Now, I do want to remind everybody of events coming up, and please check out onceinawild.com for further details, or our social media as well for further details. We will be at downtown San Antonio area this weekend on Saturday. We will be at the San Antonio Marketplace, and that will be for the Blessing of the Animals event. We'll be showing some of our photo opportunity animals and just a meet and greet over there with some of our cold weather critters. And also, this coming up next week, we're going to be at the rodeo. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the program. So we are going to be at the San Antonio Stock Show and Rodeo this year, and we're very excited. It's our first opportunity to be there at the rodeo. We're going to be over in the Freeman Coliseum from 10 to 2 p.m. on select days next week. So please visit onceinawild.com, or our social media should have some details there as well as to which days we're going to be appearing. It's going to be during the week and not the weekend, so I do apologize. We are mostly focusing on school field trips, but we will be open with our table presentation or setup for the public in general to come and pass by and meet our animals and take photos, meet them up close in person, and even touch some of our animals and get to meet me and some of our other staff out there. If you guys are interested in checking out onceinawild.com or social media in general for further details on the rodeo coming up next week, we're also going to be there the following week for just a couple of days. So please stay tuned for further details. We will let you know exactly which dates we're going to be there, because I don't have them memorized. But it will be from 10 o'clock to 2, so just a short window of time. And this weekend, like I said, the Blessing of the Animals is going to be from 11:30 to 3:30, I believe, over at the San Antonio Marketplace near downtown. But also, if you guys want, we can bring the zoo to you to a personal private event, a birthday, a classroom presentation, animal therapy, nursing home, anything at all, just because. Or we can bring you a virtual presentation as well through Zoom to anyone all over the world, as long as you have the internet and Zoom access with some kind of device. I hope you guys have really enjoyed the show. If you like what you see here and you want to support what we do, you can visit onceinawild.com/donate, and that will give you all the options to donate or sponsor our animals. We've got Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, an Amazon wish list, and even Patreon, where you can actually join and support our animals in a more direct way. Pick the animals that you want to support. Help us out. That would be great. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. I got a hair in my nose from the ferret. We met all kinds of wonderful animals tonight, but we've got even more in our collection that you can actually meet. We would love to see you soon. We may or may not be live next week. I haven't decided because of the rodeo. That's what I was trying to say. Because of the rodeo, we may post a rerun next week, but we will announce that if we are going to rerun. And I'm sure you guys forgive us for doing reruns every now and then. But we should be live very soon. If not next week, it'll be the following week or so. And we will see you next time broadcasting throughout social media. I'll try to be on Instagram again, and I will be across the rest of our social media, of course. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time. We are nothing close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing once in a while, together once in a while. I want to hear you say once in a while. Never fun for me and you. Alrighty, everybody. We hope to see you in person very soon, and we hope to see you virtually very soon. And we'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.